Now for a glimpse of agriculture around the world, Ukraine appears to be nearing its pre-war export levels when it comes to ag. The country's infrastructure minister saying Ukraine has exported 30 million metric tons of ag goods through its Black Sea and Danube ports. Specifically, more than 18 million metric tons of ag products were transported directly via the Black Sea corridor. Additionally, Ukraine aims to boost exports via the Danube and is encouraging global businesses to utilize container barge caravans to circumvent blocked grain shipments at Poland's border. And while the grain may be making it out of the country, not everyone appears happy about it. Ukraine is urging Poland to punish those responsible for spills of its grain cargo in Poland over the weekend. Around 160 metric tons of grain was destroyed at a Polish railway station. It comes as Polish farmers protest what they describe as unfair competition from Ukraine, along with European Union environment regulations. And farmer protests continue in Europe, this time in Brussels. As EU agriculture ministers meet, farmers burn tires and block the streets with tractors. They're protesting what they see as cheap agricultural products coming from outside the EU, including Ukraine. Several agriculture federations are saying the European Commission has not come far enough to meet their demands.
We've been protesting indeed for many weeks because we've seen the cost of production increase and the prices that we are being given for our production are not increasing. So it's becoming very hard to make a living out of farming in Europe. So these protests are basically for a fair income. We are struggling for dignity. We produce food, everybody needs food, and we also take care of the nature, and so we deserve to be treated with decency.
Farmers' demonstrations have also caused disruptions in Spain, Italy, France, and Germany. Well, being in Houston this week, there is a lot of talk about the southern border and the crisis in the U.S. But at the northern border, the talk is all about trade. It's been more than 6 years since the U.S., Canada, and Mexico signed the USMCA. In 2026, that agreement is up for renegotiation. But Canadian-based Real Agriculture Sean Haney telling us Canada is already preparing for those talks. One way is through Bill 282 in Canada, which would amend the Department of Foreign Affairs Trade and Development Act so that dairy, eggs, and poultry would not be on the table during trade talks. Groups, including the Canadian Agri-Food Trade Alliance, oppose the bill, but as Haney tells us, the bill would essentially prevent giving up any more market access to the Canadian dairy market in the future.
I think that's sort of built on false pretenses. I think it's going to make the U.S. really double down on wanting more market access, especially at a time where the U.S. dairy producer is really struggling. Canada is also looking at reforming its Team Canada approach, which is talking to people at the state level and in D.C. to say, hey, remember me, House Representative? Canada, U.S. trade, very important. Work on our behalf to convince the administration of the U.S. to keep what we have and not wreck the free trade that happens between the two countries. I think they're going to hear a much more protectionist attitude from some of those people at the D.C. level, because I think on both sides of the aisle, more protectionism than going back to 2018.
Haney says the presidential election in the U.S. this year will have a big impact on the renegotiation of USMCA. But he says Canada's approach will more than likely be do no harm. Happy with the current trade deal, especially considering Canada recently won the WTO dairy dispute with the U.S. Well, one of the big highlights of Commodity Classic each year is celebrating national yield winners from across the U.S. So what was the secret sauce for some of the highest yields that we saw last year? That's Chip's Corner next.
U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by Germinator Steel Closing Wheels. Perfected in conventional, excels in no-till. Order your Germinator closing wheels today.